Yes. These drugs, that seem to be that you can purchase them. I'd like to know where you buy them and what their actual effect is. Yes, because increased memory or stamina or anything else that it does, it's a drug, right? And I'd like to know where they're manufactured, what they're made of. Now, we had a little problem with what was known as chromium, some nanotechnology. Yes. Do any of those that have fibromyalgia have any nanotechnology in their bodies, or are there any tattoos on their bodies, or is there anything in their bodies that would cause some sort of problem? Right. Now, I know these are scientists and see this chalkboard and they're designing, right, a new medicine. Scientific research is only one part of a medicine's journey. Yes. And these are really, really super smart individuals, okay? And in their minds, well, if we can design that one drug that gives you enhanced memory so that you don't have to think about it, you just can learn as much as possible, um, it could affect the way that people think. Yes. Now, I did read about this guy that spent $100 million. I don't think that he should be criticized. I was running for president in 2016, and I didn't want to even fill out the forms until I had $350 million. Now, when it costs a $500 million to become the president of the United States, I don't think he was blowing money at $100 million of other people's money. Not that I would criticize the Atlantic, but what was actually spent on the whole election? Oh, $6 billion will go to or through consulting firms during this year's election. Yes. When you think about it, right. What's the greatest waste of money in politics? Well, let's look at the last 20 elections. Of those that ran for president, how much did they actually spend, and then how much did the other political candidates spend? Because I remember when Jeb Bush's super PAC, right, $104 million supporting the Bush's candidacy. That's 20% of what was actually spent by the other two candidates. So it's really one of these very expensive occupations to get a job in. Yes, it is. Now, I know senators and representatives think that, well, if I spend $100 million getting elected, it's worth it to get a job that pays $200,000 a year. A lot of power that you have there in Congress. So, did you decide that the individuals that paid to get you elected, you have to keep saying shit about each other, or could you just shut the fuck up? Now, I would say it'd be a waste of money to spend a $500 million electing a president and then have that president only have something negative to say about the employees that he dislikes. Yet there's no accountability for exactly how much it costs to get that job. It's a fucking job in the federal fucking government. Now, um, I don't think $100 million was wasted. I did realize the amount of money necessary to become the president of the United States, and it's not a mental disease or defect, it's an understanding of exactly how much it costs to get elected to office. And for any of those in office that have a difficult time just adjusting their attitudes, that we don't need to use the media as our personal soundbox to badmouth one another. Oh, it makes look what you have to be in office to be able to do that. We're not talking about the candidates that run for office. This whole idea of mudslinging when getting elected, there is a certain limitation to exactly how you can do that. But let's say you're going to get appointed to one of those benches that decides the constitutionality of cases. Yes. And I give you an example as a candidate to be appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States, Kavanaugh. Yes. That I've documented substantive due process violations on the part of judiciaries, yes, and the refusal of those. Now, you would say that Getting appointed means you don't have to get elected. It's a vetting process. And if anybody in Congress, yes, had to raise support to get elected, yes, it cost them $100 million to get the job. If that was a waste of money because you didn't want to hurt the feelings of those that are appointees, poo 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 poo. I'd have to sue the fucking shoot right now. See, elected to office, it's not a waste of money to spend $100 million of others' people money to think that a person could be the president of the United States when it costs a $500 million to get the actual presidency. In the same way, for every appointee that didn't spend any money running for election, I wouldn't appoint anybody unless I was 100% sure about whether or not they should have that job. So for each and every Supreme Court justice that just realized that you didn't run for office, yes, if it takes them years to get the right person, you realize that they didn't raise any support to get elected to the office. It's in a vetting. So if you feel like it's a big fuck you because Congress doesn't want you, it's nothing personal. They have to consider the amount of money it costs them to get elected to Congress. If we looked at each and every individual in Congress, 100 senators, yes, and numerous representatives, I don't know exactly the exact amount. I added up the total amount of campaign contributions, yes, for those to be able to sit in those seats, pooch, could be in the billions. And for them to say, well, we're just not sure, but we're going to do it anyway. I'd say they're liable for all the campaign contributions. So why doesn't Congress be the independent Congress? Okay. And they decide who gets appointed. Why doesn't the president decide that he'd like to have somebody appointed? Yes. And we will not try to diminish the value of the actual job in government right now. If they don't like you, they don't like you. They'll have to appoint somebody else.